Welcome, everybody, to the Scale Up Show. This is your host, Ryan Staley, and I have a very special guest with me today. I have Steve Benson. Steve is the CEO and founder of Badger Maps, which is the number one app in the App Store for outside salespeople, which I think is damn cool. And basically what it does is it upgrades existing CRMs with mapping and routing. Some really cool things about Steve. He was the number one sales rep in a division at Google on the enterprise side, which is near and dear to my heart. He's also a fellow podcast host like myself with Outside Sales Talk. And at the same time, he is currently the president of the Sales Hall of Fame. Steve, welcome. Happy to have you on the pod, man. I almost said on the board. I don't know what I'm saying. On the pod. How you doing?
I'll join the board too. That sounds fine.
Yeah,
No, thanks.
I don't know,
I'm glad to
man.
be here.
Sometimes all sorts of weird shit comes out of my mouth. Sometimes it makes sense. Sometimes it's smart. Sometimes it's dumb, man. So I for the most time, you just got to roll with it. That's what I'm
Yeah,
thinking.
well,
So
let's roll with it. No worries.
yeah. So anyways, real happy to have you on the show. I know it was on your show. You're way more advanced than me in terms of your scheduling. Props to your marketing team for that. I think I'll be out in like the year 2027 or something like that when it's released. But anyways, let's do a real quick backdrop on you with a revenue rundown so that you have an understanding of where Steve is, kind of where he came from. So Steve, can you give us a real quick backdrop on where you guys at in terms of the revenue journey?
We are Badger Maps is doing 6 million in revenue ARR now, all recurring. I guess a little more than that now, but yeah, 6 million. And so we got 100 employees across our different areas we do business. One office in Europe, one office in America, and then an office in Asia. And I live in the European office in Spain.
Love that, man. Which it's late your time, so appreciate you jumping on now. We mentioned you have 100 employees, and we talked about the App Store at the beginning. Where are you? Is your primary go to market like through the App Store, or is there other vehicles in which you kind of leverage to grow the business?
Um, I would. I'm not. It's kind of hard to say how much business we actually source through the App Store, and I assume you're talking about the Salesforce App Store. But I guess we're on a bunch of app stores. We're on Amazon's App Store and Salesforce's and the Apple App Store and the Play Store and 6 other CRM's app stores that we connect to. But were you referring to the App Exchange that Salesforce's or?
I don't know, man. It was in your bio, so I'm just rolling with what the marketing team provided.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so, well, I think they're referring to the App Exchange, and I'm not sure how much business actually gets sourced through there, or if people hear about us and then go there. It's one of those places that's hard to really attribute revenue to because when someone leaves there, they usually just would see our name and then Google it. It's like most things in marketing, like people typed Badger Maps into Google and landed on the website. We don't know why they typed Badger Maps, but they typed it. They landed on our website. They purchased, 3 weeks later. Um, so that we don't know the beginning of the funnel. I don't have a ton of visibility into that, and there's a bunch of things we do early funnel that I'd be happy to chat about.
Well, let's talk. What's the primary go to market then? Like, how do you grow the business? Where's most of the juice from the squeeze, if you will, when it comes to that?
I mean, I'd say the biggest thing that we do is referrals and just have a great process around referrals and getting our existing happy customers to tell other people. We're very fortunate in that we specifically sell to field salespeople, and the great thing about selling to salespeople is they're great communicators. So if you make them happy, they will spread the word for you to their friends and people they work with. And so, almost invariably, we have a land and expand method. I mean, I wish I could say that we lob a perfect cold call into the VP of sales at a med device company, and they say yeah, and they engage with us and say, yeah, I'd like to buy this for my 800 reps. That that very rarely happens. It has happened, but where it works out like that. But in general, one person at the company finds us somehow, starts using us, their direct managers like, we should have all 10 of the people covering Philadelphia use this. And then it spreads to, the state or region, and then to the country from there.
Okay.
So that land and expand motion is what works best for us. Joanne Black is the person who I just love what she does on talking about referral stuff. I have a podcast episode where I had her on, and she really outlined she's written like 3 books on how to do a professional referral process, how to set one up within your organization, how to track it, how to make sure the reps do it, all the things. And and so after doing that podcast with her, I kind of I set it up a lot of her ideas up within the organization, and that's probably our biggest source of revenue. But I mean, we do all the things though. I mean, SEO, SEM, outbound, cold emails, cold calls, uh, all the things. I guess I
Okay.
would say, and of course all the platforms that we can get on, and that sort of thing too. And then things like the podcast are helpful. Outside Sales Talk is a podcast for outside salespeople, obviously, and since that's the person that uses our software, that's super helpful.
Oh yeah, totally makes sense, man. Well, let's walk through that, man, because I think that's unique, and I've helped companies set that up and deploy that in their business as well. Because huge believer of referrals. Got a $20 million contract from a customer from a referral of a from a client we didn't even win, right? So there's huge opportunities in leveraging that, and I think it's going to get more and more critical as companies grow because there's so many solutions that are getting democratized for software creation that products are popping up all over the place. So walk us through kind of like your framework, your step-by-step approach for that. I think that'd be an awesome thing to dive into, and would love to hear how you execute that from A to Z within the business, and then like what are like tangible outcomes and results that you're getting from it.
So the I guess the key thing is to have kind of the talk paths, and make sure you include it not just on your sales side, but on your customer support and customer success side. So everyone who interacts with the customer, especially if you've just been able to, make a customer happy, asking them if they'd like to refer someone is really helpful. You have to have a referral process uh, where it's two-way, where you give, meaning if you reward the person who gives a referral, and you also want to reward, you want them to be giving a reward to the person that they're reaching out, that they're referring, right? In our case, if someone refers another person to our company, we give them a $50 gift certificate, just to Amazon, and then they're giving away like an extended free trial of our product to the person that they know. So it's a two-way. Everybody's winning. It's like they're giving them something, and they're obviously only going to do it if they're only someone's only going to tell. No one's doing it for the money, especially they're doing it because they want to help their friend or colleague, and so step one is to have a product that actually creates enough value for people that they're happy enough with you that they want to tell people about it. Um, and then there's the more of the corporate referral, which is more gets into more like either affiliate marketing, where someone just gets a lot of traffic, so they can shuttle that traffic your way, um, or if they are someone who like interacts with the right type of companies that would be your customers, you can set them up in an actual partnership program. So all those forms of referrals are important, and then making sure you're actually doing it, making sure you've implemented the processes within all these touch points of the customer, that you are asking them, and asking them if they know people who need this, and would they make the introduction, and having a talk path for the salespeople to do that, and or the especially like the customer support or customer success people, making it feel natural and easy for them to make those requests. It's more natural for your sales team usually. And and then measuring the results to the best you can. I mean, and that's probably the toughest part because there is a real break in the chain, right? A lot of a lot of people that sign up for our product would tell you, "Oh yeah, I heard about it from my friend," but we didn't actually pay their friend because their friend didn't, give them. There was no their friend didn't refer them through our system. They just told them about it. Although I do think that even having a referral program in place makes people more likely to do that, even if they're like, "Well, I'm not going to bother chasing down the $50." Um, but I want to help this person. This From this conversation,
Yeah,
I want to let them know.
totally makes sense. I think so. What are the outcomes you've seen from that on a well, I don't know, like last year, like what were the results you saw from the referral program that you systemized, and then outside of what you just kind of mentioned, what's like the single biggest mistake that companies make when they try and deploy it?
Um, the I don't. It's really hard for me to say what the total value of the program is, just because it's one of it is, like I said, it's really hard to measure because we don't know. But anecdotally, when we ask people, "Hey, where'd you hear about us?" Invariably, they say from a friend or a colleague, or they say from Google. And from Google means a lot of things, right? But then from a friend is pretty clearly pointing back to that. I guess our biggest success, we did do last year a 460K a year deal, with a company that has 1,000 field sales reps. Like I said, it's 1,200 now. It started out at like 380 and then jumped to 460 when they renewed, so they added about 200 more. So I think they're at 1,200 reps now, and that started out just as a referral with like it was one person, um, and they were using it, and just a single seat deal, and then classic like land and expand, referred it around his organization, and then when upper management got word of the results people were getting from it, they were like, "Oh, well, it was the Southeast division, if I recall, wanted to buy it for the whole division, and then it hit some executive's desk. I think it was like the COO or something who had to sign off on it, and they were like, "Well, wait a minute. Either you don't need this, or everybody needs this. Like, why are you in the Southeast different than, say, the Northwest? Why? You, so which is it?" And they talked amongst themselves and decided, well, it looks like everybody needs this, so let's just get it for everybody. Um, and so that, I guess that's a
Okay.
solid example of it working.
Yeah, that makes sense, man. I guess in terms of like one of the things that I think you focused on that is great is trying to carve out 5 to 10 hours a month, or I should say a week, for folks that use your software by optimizing kind of their route or their territory in terms of how they approach meetings, which I think is awesome because I love doing the same thing with leveraging AI for the different components of the sales job, right? Because it's just if you free up 10 hours, it's life changing in a week, right? If free up 20, that's that's world changing. And so I guess like break that down for me, like where are the biggest time wasters that the revenue community has, specifically on the sales side, that you're seeing on a kind of week in, week out basis? It gets exposed through conversations you have or through your software.
Yeah, well, and it's a funny time right now in technology, right? Like, it's not just our thing, right? There's a bunch of software that really makes a big difference in in saving people time or making them more efficient or scaling their activities. Both on the AI side, on all the different apps, and it's like all these things that, like, you know one of the, I was a really solid sales rep back in the day, but I don't even know if I'd be as good today because one of the reasons I was really good is I would just grind through things and like sent a ton of emails, did a ton of calls, did research on my customers, like a lot of things that I guess I would put under the umbrella of grunt work today that should be done by apps and should be done with AI. And a lot of the things that I would have called my competitive advantages really weren't. I don't know if they I don't know if they play as well today. Um, but I think that, for us, for example, like, figuring out what your route's going to be if you're a field sales rep. So if you're a med device sales rep selling lasers to doctors, um, you just use a conversation I had this week, like that you're visiting 7, 8 doctors a day, and some of them have your competitors' laser, some of them have your laser, but it's old, etc. And a lot of this information from your CRM, but when you actually, what we do is we connect to the CRM, bring the data in, and give you the tools on your mobile device to figure out who do I focus on when I'm out in the field on Thursday, given that I know I have to be here at 10 and I know I have to be here at 2:30. So on the way to the 10 o'clock appointment, who should I be seeing on, or what's around there after that? What's on the way to the next one? What's on the way home? Helping them plan out their day in a way that makes sense, then plan out their week in a way that makes sense. They end up driving a whole bunch less, right? They hit more accounts and spend less time behind the wheel, and they get more meetings, and the meetings are with the right people because they have a tool to kind of help them focus. And so but this is just one small part of the sales job, right? I think basically every sales team I come in contact with is just not leveraging technology nearly enough. And you can make one guy into 3 guys, really, like with the right kinds of tools and the right, and I guess I'm a great example of that. I remember sending like 1,000 cold emails, and this is probably like in 2004, one at a time, like where I copied the email and put it in the 2 line, copied the body, put it in the body, copied the title, changed the body to make it appropriate for this particular industry, and press send. And it took me like a week, and today you could just do something like that, right? I mean, it's you send 50,000 emails a month and not break a sweat, right? And usually it's like segmented off into specialized groups, and it, leveraging technology, you can just get so much farther today than you could. And I think that most people are not leveraging that enough. And as I look over your podcast, obviously, like you're discussing a lot of this stuff. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big believer, man. Like I think, I mean, there's so many tools, and sometimes there is a time to implementation, right? Like, because like for example, like I made a commitment, what is it, a few weeks ago, like I'm going, when I did my annual planning for this year, I'm like, I'm going to make sure I'm dead focused on really scaling up my YouTube channel, because I'm doing a lot of components that are foundational for it, but like I didn't focus on the details, like the SEO, like because YouTube is like different than podcasting, I think, where it's like you got to effectively generate content based on YouTube wants versus just generating content that you want to do, right? It's very like, I don't know, it's almost reverse, right? There's a lot of SEO components to it. There's a lot of like thumbnail specificity, all that kind of detail, right? And so, but to bring it full circle, they're like, yeah, I just use this tool. It's super easy. It handles SEO and everything like that. But then it takes me like half hour to learn it, right? And I have to prioritize it to take that half hour to learn it. And I did that because it's a priority, but there's so many times I can't tell you, and this is on me, where I've leveraged a tool or something and I'm like, I try it out for 5 minutes and I don't figure it out, and then I don't use it anymore. Right. So it's
yeah,
like, and what I'm seeing is these teams have like 10, 15, 20 tools, right? So it's tough to really become a master or set them up in the way that they're supposed to be set up so that you get full utilization. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So
I think there is a need for specialization there too, like to
yeah.
point to it. It should be certain people's jobs in the team, and I mean it's we used to call them sales operations, but who figure out how the sales team can operate better, and
Yeah.
because
Without a
as an
without a
individual
doubt.
sales rep that might gain 4 hours from some new tool a week, but maybe it's not worth them spending 8 hours to set the thing up and figure out, do the research, which one to purchase, and which one to get, and figure out the market or the space. Whereas in aggregate, if the team has 100 people on it, and so it's actually 400 hours a week that would be saved, it's for sure worth having one person figure it out for everybody. And I think
Mm-hmm.
I think that a mature sales organization needs to invest more in these types of sales, operational, technological experts to be the ones that carry the torch on that. Because it's not worth it to this one person on the team, this kind of on the front lines, but it is worth it for the organization to figure this out.
Oh yeah, without a doubt, man. And so let's bring it because we're getting close on time. Actually, the question I wanted to ask you too is like, how many sales teams have you worked with, like just through your product and through the teams? I heard you say a team of 1,200. I mean, what would you say in terms of number of sales teams, number of reps?
I mean, right now we have 4,100 sales teams that use Badger Maps to organize this aspect of their sales, and I certainly haven't worked with all of them, but over the years, I would guess thousands of teams I've worked with in different capacities. But
Okay, so love
I
that. That's amazing, right? 4,100 sales teams. So what would you say if, because like, and this is just you aggregating on the fly because I didn't prep you for this question or anything, but what would you say is the single biggest problem that's consistent across those sales team? And then what do you see is the single biggest opportunity based on that data set in companies and teams that you've worked with?
um I'd say the biggest problem is not leveraging best practices. Like there's so much knowledge with it. Every single thing you're selling is different, and there's so much knowledge about the product and the customer that you're selling to, and how your organization works, and how to get things done in your organization, and all the things that fall under the umbrella of getting a deal done, but that aren't, actually sitting in front of a customer and answering their questions about the product or overcoming objections or whatever the things that we kind of think of as sales. Um, there's so much knowledge floating around that different people have on how to get this type of deal done or whatever it is. And someone in the organization knows, like there's a team of 30 sales reps, and someone knows how to do that really well, but that knowledge isn't shared across the organization very well. And so if I and I just see that over and over again where someone like, it's like our product, right? Like it's like we see all the time, like, oh, two people or four people or something at this organization are using our product out of 150. Like we know that it's just as useful to everybody, right? It's just this one team in Arizona, like someone figured it out, and they started using it because it's helpful to them. We're like, so that's like a very common thing we see, and we're just an example of this. But what I recommend that people do, whether it's to spread the word on what we do, or spread the word on anything smart that works well, is is have kind of a brown bag lunch type thing, and doesn't shouldn't be at the sales kickoff because there's too much to do anyway, and everyone's already hungover. But just on your weekly meeting when you chit chat about what's going on, have Jessica from Tulsa explain to the rest of the team how she's doing this really smart thing that she's doing. And and if you're a manager, you're like, I was just talking to Jessica, and she figured out this process that like really greases the skids on this one thing. Have her throw together 6 slides and teach the other 30 people at the who are in her exact role how to be great at that random thing. And usually it's not something that you can like, Google a YouTube video on how to do it. And it's not like, how do you overcome that pricing objection? Because usually it's something germane to your product, who you're selling to, who your organization and how to get things done. Like, how did you get legal to give on that term? Like, what so it's like that. But all the knowledge on almost everything is living in your sales organization, so you can unlock it by having them share and take a leadership role, really, and teach the rest of the group, and just little bite-sized 15-minute uh, platefuls of knowledge.
That is it's funny because that's so simple, but that's dead on. Because I remember that at when I was a sales leader, that was some of the things that we leveraged. But it was funny; it took a while to do it. Right? It wasn't natural. There wasn't a systemized process around it, and we would have different reps present on things that they did exceptionally, right? And it was really really helpful because I remember the team would get lit up from it. The person who presented got lit up from it, right? Because they got to show their thought leadership, and then the team got lit up because it was like, oh, my peer's doing this, and even if it was a cocky person or whatever, they still appreciated the new ideas, and it was hyper detailed and specific and relevant. So I think that's awesome advice, man. I love that. I think that's super useful and relevant, and I could see why you gave that as an answer, and that wasn't what I was expecting, man. So great job on that, Steve.
I try to throw a lot of curveballs. Just try to keep you on your toes.
No, it's good. Well, unfortunately, we're up on time. So where can people find you? Where can they find out more about saving, 5 to 10 hours a week on their routes with Badger Maps?
Yeah, if bringing routing and mapping to your CRM for your sales team is what you're into, Badger Maps is the spot to go. You can find us, on the web, obviously. If it's me you're after, best place to find me is probably on LinkedIn. Just Google Steve Benson Badger Maps, or I'm sorry, LinkedIn Steve Benson or Google. It'll all work. You can find me Steve Benson Badger Maps, and I'll pop up.
Okay, awesome. And I could attest to, I haven't used Badger Maps personally, but when I did run a team, this is one of the things, I don't think I even told you this, Steve. We did a whole time efficiency study with travel and reps, and we found that literally, if, and this was all manual, right? This was just by like carving people into certain geographic areas, that literally they could work 3 to 4 times as many deals because of all of the back and forth driving and traffic. So I know there's value in what you're providing, because I saw it when I had to manually go through with spreadsheets and track and estimate how many miles and everything like that. So
Yeah,
love, love,
it's
love
a
that.
surprisingly silly problem, but without you can't do it without technology. Like, it just wasn't like I used to work in the Google Maps team. Like, you couldn't do it without mobile mapping available on a mobile device. Until now it's been it's just been an impossible problem. But you definitely, it's a funny thing because all these sales teams measure this in different ways, and they know, but the before and after, because they're like, well, we were paying people 50 cents a mile or whatever it is, so like we know exactly how many miles they were driving before, and we know exactly how many miles they were driving after, because we're paying them. And so the number went down by 20%, and that translated into driving 20% less, or they were paying for their gas and they saw that drop by 20%. Like they could, or they were tracking their meetings and that went up by a bunch. And so, on average, like
Love it.
1.5 to a day. So that's kind of
Yep.
that's where you can measure the value.
Awesome. Well, great episode, Steve. Thanks for being on, man. Appreciate it. Appreciate what you're doing. So thanks for being on the episode.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
All right. And I appreciate you for joining me, and we will see you on the next episode as well.